Now, I'm making this video straight off the bat of the PlayStation 5 event, and is going to be my first impressions and speculation towards these games. This event was absolutely amazing, as we actually got to see the official visual reveal of the PlayStation 5, which looked weird, but we'll get onto that. But let's start it off with the game that everyone was surprised by, and that's Grand Theft Auto 5. So it is confirmed that Grand Theft Auto 5 will be coming to the PlayStation 5, and not only that, but all PlayStation users from now until the official release of Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PS5 will get $1 million in-game dollars for just having a PlayStation and being part of the PlayStation brand. So that's good news for all those PlayStation players out there, and not so good for those Xbox players. But most of us are really excited for Grand Theft Auto 5 to be coming to the PlayStation 5. In the live chat, everyone was ecstatic, but were hoping for Grand Theft Auto 6. It's just nice to see how long Grand Theft Auto can last from the past 2 generations and now going into the 3rd. Unfortunately, we didn't get any gameplay of the PlayStation 5 version of Grand Theft Auto 5, but that is fine. I'm not too bothered about the graphics at this point, considering they're not going to necessarily be remastering the entire game, but it's just so fantastic to see it being ported to PS5, and I can't wait to play it. The next game to be revealed was Spider-Man Miles Morales, coming out in 2020, and this seems to be more of a spin-off than a sequel necessarily to the Spider-Man PS4 game. This game looks to be incredible. Instead of playing as Peter Parker, you will now play as Miles Morales in his iconic black and red suit. Not much was shown on the gameplay side of things, and we don't know what to expect for Miles Morales, but it is certainly a welcome addition to the PlayStation 5 library. I'm unsure if it's ever going to be a PS4 to PS5 game, as they didn't give any indication on that, but I'm pretty sure it's just going to be a standard PlayStation 5 exclusive, and that'll be it. But I'm really excited to see how Miles Morales will intertwine in his own spin-off game. As you can never really get enough of Spider-Man, so I'm glad to see it on the PlayStation 5. Next we had Gran Turismo 7, and we didn't get Drive Club 2, and I'm pretty sure many people are happy about that. But in fairness, all racing games as of now are realistically breaking the boundaries when it comes to graphical fidelity, and Gran Turismo is no exception. It looks absolutely fantastic, and to be honest, I and many other people can't wait to get their hands on it on the PlayStation 5, which doesn't seem to be too far away now, as most of these games are being pressed to be released in the holiday season of 2020, so if the rumours collide that it will be released in the holiday season of 2020, then we don't really have to wait that long, and I'm happy to wait, and I'm pretty sure many people are, to get their hands on some of these amazing titles. One of the main games that I was so excited to see and literally screamed out of my chair when I saw this being announced was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And I absolutely love the Ratchet and Clank franchise, and it was so sad to see that on PS4 we only got one title. And to see Ratchet and Clank being a launch title for the PS5 is absolutely amazing. It looks to have an incorporation of some more open world elements than what we have initially had with Ratchet and Clank, and seems to be a sequel to A Crack in Time, where you have time manipulation and can go through multiple dimensions, as in the gameplay we see Ratchet and Clank go to a city and a Kraken comes out of a portal and attacks another enemy. This type of gameplay could really be revolutionary for the Ratchet and Clank franchise, and really bring more life to it and bring newer fans towards the franchise who are just looking for a more cartoony and chilled out experience with a fantastic story. With Project Athena, I can't really put my finger down on what this game is. Is it an open world game? Is it a semi-open world game? Or is it a linear story game? At this point in time, I'm not too sure. Movement wise, it looks very similar to the Unreal Engine tech demo that we got most recently, but I assure you that it has nothing to do with that tech demo. The environments, the creatures, the use of powers and set pieces really gives me a Dragon Age vibe to the entire game. It looks like you have a vast range of powers and you can move with such agility. This game looks very interesting, but I'm not too sure what the game is about, and I guess I'll have to wait and see for more, and you will too. Now, this by far could be one of the weirdest games that I have ever seen PlayStation release, and that is saying something. This game called Stray, it starts off as a robot city. Robots roam the land, and they seem to be the dominant species. This robot is followed by a cat, and then this cat goes off on its own little adventure. And then you later find out you're playing as the cat. It's very strange, and I don't know how we're going to be playing as this cat and what our goal is going to be in this game, but this game is releasing in 2021. And I guess that we have never had a cat simulator on console, so let's go wait and see for that. But honestly, the aesthetic of this game looks absolutely beautiful. It almost has a Tokyo aesthetic to it, neon lights, everything looks beautiful. All of the games on this list look beautiful in this live stream, and I just don't really know what to make of Stray. It's a very peculiar game, and like most of these titles, we're just gonna have to wait and see for more about these games, maybe gameplay or even a gameplay trailer, that would be nice. But yeah, honestly, Stray looks to be one of the weirdest games that I have ever seen. Next we have Returnal. Now, Returnal seems to have a quite bizarre concept. When you die, you don't die, you respawn. Just like most games ever, but in this time it's relating more to the story side of things. Loads of the enemies seem to have a Death Stranding oily slick look to them, and I can't really explain the concept of the game. I feel like you start off and if you die you get placed somewhere else around the map. Most of these environments look absolutely stunning though, and the main concept of the game, it seems that you are a pilot who crashes on this planet. I don't know if it was a planet that she's been to, but the main reason you're on this planet is to survive, I think. I feel like this game could do really well, especially if it had a Plague's Tale Innocence, that type of gameplay mechanics and the way that the story is presented, where it's sort of a linear guided game, but as of now, we don't really know. The concept though does seem to be quite interesting, and I do like weird games like that because I really love Death Stranding, and so if a game has that similar sort of aesthetic and lack of story, but the story's actually there, then I will certainly be picking it up. Now, the combat seems to be very much like Mass Effect, over the shoulder, and even the distance of the camera looks to be fairly similar. Now, we didn't get much of the combat gameplay, so I can't really comment on it very much, but from the gameplay aspects of the trailer, that's the type of vibe and aesthetic that I got from it. Next we got Sackboy's Big Adventure. Yes, a brand new Little Big Planet game without the title Little Big Planet. In this game, it seems that you will be playing co-op with friends and maybe even potentially AI, we don't really know as of now. Maybe it's going to be more of a co-op party game than anything else. But that seems to be quite interesting. I could definitely see me playing this game with my friends and just having a good laugh while playing something that isn't so serious like most modern games that are out right now, and even to be honest, most games on this list. And the environments in this game seem to be much more 3D, much more than what the earlier games in the Little Big Planet franchise were, but in the later games they started to delve more into 3D environments, and they've definitely pursued that with Sackboy's Big Adventure. Then we saw Destruction AllStars. Now, this was a game that I wasn't too sure on. It seemed at first to be a Rocket League clone, and then I thought, why would they want a Rocket League clone when we've already got Rocket League? And then we saw destructible cars, and I was thinking, hey, this looks good. And then we saw the players getting out of the cars. This game certainly looks to be very interesting and seems to be a team-based game. It almost looks like Rocket League crossed with Twisted Metal. It certainly looks like an interesting game. I'm not too sure if it's going to be one that I'm going to be picking up anytime soon when I get the PlayStation 5, but it is certainly an interesting game and I feel like there is certainly a market for it. But for me personally and the people that I was watching the event with, we don't really see much potential with this game, and I definitely don't think it's going to be as big as Rocket League, but it certainly looks very interesting. I'm wondering how they're going to incorporate the getting out of the car gameplay in the entire environment with all the other cars, and is there going to be power-ups? At this point in time, we just don't know, and that's the fact with most of the games on this list, as I've said previously. But it does look to be interesting, and I may keep a far eye on it. I'm not going to be looking at it very closely, but either way, it's basically Rocket League with Twisted Metal for the PlayStation 5, so what could go wrong? This one certainly took me by surprise, and that is Kena Bridge of Spirits. This game has a very unique aesthetic. The environments seem to be going for a photorealistic environment, but the character models are almost cartoon-esque. It almost seemed to me like the characters were sort of in the style of the Spyro Reignited trilogy. I don't know why, I just got that aesthetic. Maybe it's just because of the soft edges on the faces and bodies, but this game does look to be very interesting. I feel like it's going to be a semi-open world game, and honestly, there are quite a few boss battles appearing in this game, so I don't really feel like it's going to be your standard happy-go-lucky semi-open world with a few little tiny bosses. These bosses looked absolutely incredible, and I feel like the main drive and goal for your character and you as the player is to bring life back into the world. As at the end of the trailer, after defeating an enemy, the dark and decrepit forest now becomes lush with grass and flowers, and I feel like that is certainly going to be the main goal of the game. Maybe after defeating a boss, part of the map now becomes a lush forest, but that's just from my initial impression. As of now, we don't know the main motive of the game and most of these games, but that seems to be the main goal for you, the player, as well as the main character. Goodbye Volcano High is coming out in 2020, and it is a game that I'm really not too sure what it's about. We got a really nice trailer, but it didn't have any gameplay whatsoever, and it seemed to be more of a cartoon or a TV series than an actual game. Maybe it's an animated story-based game, maybe perhaps like the Telltale games, but we haven't seen any indication of that, and in fact we didn't see any indication of what the game was about at all. So for this one, we're going to have to see more footage to really analyse it, but I really do like the aesthetic of this trailer. I think it is really nice and certainly maybe something that I would be interested in picking up, but I will need to see more before I pick this game up on the PlayStation 5. But as of now, we will just have to wait and see where this one goes, as literally it could go in any direction. Next we have a game that I know many people have been hoping for, and that is Oddworld 2, the remake called Soulstorm. Now this seems to have really extensive and expansive set pieces, and the skybox looked amazing. It is certainly a very classic game. It's very classic in the sense that since it's a remake, it is going to play basically the exact same as the PS1 version did, which is absolutely incredible, and I feel like we almost need that hint of nostalgia to sort of bring us back to where we came from, in the sense that the PlayStation generation has come so far. This game certainly does look to be very interesting. Personally, it's not for me, but I do know people who are very excited about this game being released. But for me, I'm personally not going to pick it up. I didn't really enjoy the first game, and therefore I don't really feel like I'll enjoy the second game. That style of game just isn't for me, but it certainly could be for you. The graphics in this game look so amazing. The graphics are so beautiful, and honestly I feel like this trailer alone really sets the bar for what PS5 graphics can look like. And the fact that we got more gameplay for this than most of the games in this live event is absolutely amazing, and really shows the faith that they have in this project and how they know so many people have been awaiting it. Next we have Ghostwire Tokyo, a game that so many people have been anticipating for a very long time now, and unsurprisingly this game is set in Tokyo. This game seems to have a very anime/Dishonored and Prey vibe to it. Well, it is being made by Bethesda and id made Prey, so I guess I can vouch for that. Maybe a bit less on the Dishonored side, but it certainly has that sort of floaty aesthetic to it. It seems to be a cross between Prey and even more of a horror game, maybe even cross between BioShock, the original BioShock, which certainly had more visual horror elements to it than the later games. This game does look to be very interesting though, and I'm curious to see what the glitching effects are, if it's the mental state of the character or an external thing that is causing those events. As of now, we don't know. Much like, as I've said before, with many games on this list. But this game does look to be quite interesting, and I may even pick it up. Although I don't really feel like it's going to be on my priority list, but it will certainly be on there in some capacity. Next we have Jet the Far Shore, which is coming out in 2020. This game seems to have a hand-drawn aesthetic, much akin to Valiant Hearts. And it seems like this will be a civilization game where you take care of a civilization of people. The aesthetics seem to be, as I've said, Valiant Heart-esque, but when it actually got to gameplay, there wasn't a lot of that hand-drawn aesthetic, which is something that I'd like to point out, and perhaps it was just for the cutscene and the trailer. But I would have really liked to seen the full game in that aesthetic. It did keep quite a neutral colour palette tone throughout the trailer, and it seemed that there were some sci-fi elements to it, as we saw a rocket flying across water. But as of now, it seems to be a civilization game. We didn't really see much in the regards of the civilization things that would lead with the game, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now next we had Godfall, and we all know Gearbox as being the looter shooter kings, but Godfall is going to be that aesthetic and gameplay mechanic but with swords. I honestly don't know how they're going to pull this off. All of the swords in the game look to be very similar, and there was very little difference between them. Maybe the abilities that they had, but nothing out of the ordinary. Godfall seems to be more of a hack and slash game, and seemed to mirror the combat of the newest God of War title, and this is just absolutely amazing. I really loved the combat in God of War, but I just don't see how the swords are going to play into this. I don't see how they're going to be gear that you unlock, because swords are just swords, you swing them about. They may have a bit of fire on them, a bit of electric, but they're still swords at the end of the day. It was nice though to see gameplay of Godfall and to really see what we were getting into with Gearbox's next generation game. Then we had Solar Ash. This is coming out in 2020 and seems to be a game of mystery. The overall art design of the game looked very beautiful, and at first I thought that this would be a sequel to Journey, or perhaps even a spiritual successor. But later on, when the character started moving on the screen, I got more of a Gravity Rush vibe. I'm not too sure how they're going to play this one out, as for Solar Ash we didn't really get much gameplay. We literally got the character jumping from a ledge and then going to the edge of a cliff where we saw the skybox, and that was it. That's how it is with most of the games in this list. They just give us enough so we get the aesthetic of the game, but not enough that we truly understand what the game is about. I feel like this game is going to be very interesting, and I may keep my eye on it if it's an indie title and it's not too expensive, but if it's AAA I probably won't end up picking it up, but that's just me. You might absolutely love the aesthetic of that game. Next we had the surprise of Hitman 3, which is coming in January 2021. This Hitman game seems to span across a plethora of different varying locations. We've seen Tokyo, we've seen city-based areas, forests, and even skyscrapers. This seems to certainly be more Hitman, and when I say that I don't mean like, oh, this seems to be more Hitman. This game seems to be very interesting. The initial part of the trailer almost came across as a horror game, and I assumed that it was a horror game. And then later on, when I saw that silenced pistol behind his back, I knew that this was a Hitman game. The gameplay looked to be very expansive and a lot more varied due to the new variety of locations. Where in Hitman 2 and 1 and the other games, it was basically just more of a similar house or office type of environment. And in this game, Agent 47 looks as good as ever. I'm really excited for this game as I haven't really delved too deeply into the Hitman franchises. And this may even be the game that gets me into the Hitman franchise, and for me that is very exciting. Next we had Astros Playroom, which will be preloaded onto your PlayStation 5 when you get it straight out of the box. Now this seems to be a spiritual successor to the title that we had on the PlayStation 4. And in this version, Astros Playroom, it almost has a Mario Sunshine vibe to it. Maybe it's just the movement system, or the way that he uses like a jetpack laser beam thing almost to climb higher up and higher up. This game does look to be very interesting and is a nice little bonus if you do eventually get bored on your PlayStation 5 and you just want a simple platformer to play. This game does almost feel like PlayStation are trying to go back to the mascot platformers, and I feel like they could possibly do it, but it's not going to be as big as their well-known ones, such as Crash and Spyro. Now I said earlier that there was one game that was more weird than the one before, and this is the one. This is called Little Devil Inside, and it appears originally to be a survival game. And then you get a visual of a man just walking down the street, and then you get to see him in the bathtub and then asleep. And it appears, I assume, that you are surviving in a world inside of his body. It is a very bizarre concept, but a very good one at that. It does look to be very interesting, and there are a lot of survival elements. It seemed that our character was running away from a sandstorm. He was sliding down some penguins down a sand dune. He was shooting a bear. Everything in this game looks to be, on the surface level, just quite generic. And then you get to the bit where he's sitting in a bathtub, and then all of a sudden in the survival world, it is freezing. This game I really will keep an eye on. I feel like this could be a very intriguing indie title for me to play, and many others as well. The game at first looks very similar to Limbo, but in a 3D environment, and the environment itself looks to be fairly realistic, but the character almost is a halfway between a paper-made character and a character from Dream's PS4. Next we have NBA 2K21, and me personally, I am not much of a sports games fan. I don't generally like FIFA or WWE or NBA, anything like that, so I'm mainly going to be focusing on the graphics, because we didn't even get any gameplay. The graphics looked absolutely amazing, seeing the sweat drip from the basketball player's face. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments for not knowing who he is, but still. Seeing the blood and sweat dripping from his face looked absolutely amazing and really looked photorealistic. And the god rays protruding through the window of the basketball court looked absolutely amazing, especially with the ray tracing being involved. Next we had Bugs Snacks, which is releasing in the holiday season of 2020. Now this game was created by the creators of Octodad, so you know it's going to be weird and wacky. The premise of this game is that whatever you eat becomes a part of your body, so you are what you eat. This game does look to be very strange, and I can definitely see the reason why Octodad's creators went in this direction. It is so wacky and out of the blue from them. I mean, it's ridiculous saying even from them. There isn't much story though, in the sense that I don't really see what the character or the player is going to be doing in the game, whether they're going to be trying to make everyone back to normal or turn everyone into different types of foods, whether that's a potato with hands that are carrots, who knows at this point. But I feel like this is a game that is going to be an indie hit, much like with Octodad. And now we have my favourite game to release for the PlayStation 5 as of now. And that is Demon's Souls Remastered. I absolutely love the Soulsborne franchise, and I was really expecting a Bloodborne 2, as there was so much hype surrounding that game and speculation that it would release in this gameplay trailer, but sadly it didn't. But we did get Demon's Souls, which has been speculated for having a remaster by Bluepoint Studios. And there is not a chance in the world I will be missing this remaster on the PlayStation 5. As soon as that game releases, it will be in my hands, I promise you. All of the reworked enemies and bosses look absolutely amazing, and I really can't wait to get my hands on this game. I really do wish it was Bloodborne 2, but I'm happy either way that we are getting a Soulsborne game on the PlayStation 5, as I doubt we'll be seeing a new Dark Souls entry for a very long time. So, Demon's Souls Remastered, it's a warm welcome from me. Now we have Deathloop, and this was a game that I certainly wasn't expecting to see. It almost had a Duke Nukem vibe to it, and that took me by surprise. I thought it was certainly going to be a lot more fast-paced than what we saw in this reveal trailer. It almost feels like a Dishonored game, and I don't want to say that in a bad way, but it is from the developers Arcane Studios who made Dishonored, and I don't feel like they can get away from the Dishonored formula and therefore have incorporated it into Deathloop. And the fact that it almost gives me Wolfenstein crossed with Dishonored vibes later on in the trailer. I'm assuming that this game is going to have some multiplayer incorporation, because there are a protagonist and an antagonist in this game. One is trying to continue the cycle, and then one who is trying to stop the cycle of the Deathloop. Now, this is where I feel like multiplayer could be absolutely fantastic and really add a new dynamic to the game. I'm really excited for this game, and if I can get one of my friends to get it as well, if this game does have multiplayer in that capacity, then I am certain that I will be playing this game for a very long time, as you could take so many angles with how you take to each level and stage, and how you approach it, whether you go stealthy and try and sneak around, or you go full guns blazing hoping that you won't get shot. Then we had Resident Evil 8, called Resident Evil Village, which is coming out in 2021. This game looks to be very eerie and creepy, and at first I thought it was going to be a new Outlast game. But then I noticed and remembered that people were speculating that Resident Evil 8 would keep the first person perspective and leave the third person perspective for the remakes and reimaginings. The entire environment and aesthetic of this game looks to be far more creepy and scary in its overall tone as well than what Resident Evil 7 was. And the fact that at the very end we saw Chris being revealed and shooting the person opposite us was absolutely mind-blowing. I'm really excited to see what Resident Evil 8 will bring to the franchise, and maybe what it'll take away. Will it tarnish previous characters that we've had, or will it build upon them? As of yet, we don't know. The graphics did seem to look quite interesting and certainly did follow the aesthetic of Resident Evil 7, and I'm glad that they kept with the first person perspective, as it puts you in the shoes of the character and not from behind them from a shoulder perspective. The game that took me by surprise and the one that I was most interested in, as it wasn't a sequel to anything, was Bragmata. There wasn't really much context to this game. It appeared that a satellite crashed through the sky, but the sky wasn't the sky. It almost seemed to be a massive screen that just indicated that there was a fake sky there. And by the end of the trailer, we're on the moon. Well, a person in an astronaut suit and also a girl who seems to either be a robot or a cyborg or an AI. They are just on the moon. This is certainly very interesting, and games like this really intrigue me where they don't give too much away about the story. Just a simple cinematic setup and then off you go into the story. I will certainly be keeping a close eye on this game, as I'm really starting to love the aesthetic of the entire game when I rewatch that trailer over and over again. As of now, we don't really know much about the game, but I'm pretty sure that you could find some leaks online about it. But games that I intend to buy, I don't generally look up leaks or story plot ideas for it, as I want to go in with a fresh experience and a fresh set of eyes. Then we had Horizon Zero Dawn 2, Forbidden West. This game looks absolutely phenomenal. I know so many people are going to be so happy that this game has been announced and is going to be a launch title for the PlayStation 5. I mean, if you look at the trailer, there were HD crabs, man. HD crabs, no. But in seriousness, the crabs did look crisp and very photorealistic. And in this game, there are actual animals, not just robots here, there, and everywhere. The game looked to have phenomenal draw distance and the colouring looked absolutely amazing. The environment variety was also very welcome. I'm glad that we're getting to see so much more in this game. It's not just one set environment and then that's it for you. In this game we saw sand dunes, we saw forests, and we even saw underwater environments. I'm pretty sure everyone who enjoyed the first game will be so excited to play Horizon Zero Dawn 2. The variety of animals that we're seeing are so much more than what we saw in Horizon Zero Dawn 1. There were giant robot turtles, robot pterodactyls, you name it. This game looks to be absolutely phenomenal and the graphics looked absolutely amazing in the trailer, and especially even more when watching them in 4K and rewatching the trailers. This game is certainly going to be on many people's go-to lists when they get the PS5, so make sure you get your pre-orders in as soon as possible. And now, we have the moment that you have all been waiting for, the actual PlayStation 5. We get to see it through the computer screens. I was about to say in the flesh, but that wouldn't really work. The design for the PlayStation 5 seems to be, let's say, very unique. I'm not too big of a fan of the PlayStation 5 design. I feel like they've gone angular and like curvy at the same time. I feel like they should have just stuck with one or the other. Either gone for an angular design or a curved design. I don't really personally like the merge between the two. But one fantastic thing that I know a lot of people are going to appreciate is the fact that we now have the option of a discless PlayStation 5, much akin to the Xbox One where they made a discless edition. This is going to be absolutely amazing, and I feel like it's going to be better and more amazing for the people who want and prefer to get all their games digitally. And I assume that this version of the console is going to be a little bit cheaper than the one with a disc drive. Looking through the comments on the actual live event, many people weren't too happy of the PlayStation 5's look. And for me personally, I prefer the PlayStation 4 look to the PlayStation 5, but maybe I just have to get used to it. The common reception was that it looked weird, and I even saw one comment that said it looked like a coffee maker, which, if you look at it at the right angle, maybe it looks like that, but for me, I think it looks okay. It looks a bit wacky, it's certainly not what I'm used to, but I think that's just because I've never seen a white console, and all my consoles have been black, so maybe I just need to get used to the white aesthetic of the console. But maybe only time will tell and change my opinion. But that was everything on the PlayStation 5's live events. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe and turn on that notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So thank you, and goodbye. But maybe in time I will learn to appreciate the new PlayStation 5's design. I'll just have to wait the long way round. But that was everything in the PlayStation 5 live event, and I hope that you did enjoy this video. And if you did, then please consider subscribing. But thank you, and goodbye.